With recent travel advisories, government cautions, and alerts, this information will help you to avoid injury, theft, and to stay safe in cruise ports of call. Hi there, I'm Ilana from the website lifewellcruise.com. Welcome back to my channel. Now, this video is not meant to scare anybody, but I do think that a lot of us as cruise travelers, we do have some concerns when we go out into cruise ports of call, especially with recent travel advisories and some different situations. Now, I think if you've watched my videos before, you probably know that I'm a pretty cautious traveler, but I also do really like to get out and explore the ports. So in this video, I'm going to share with you some important information, but I'm also going to share with you my personal tips that have worked for me. And I am going to answer a couple of questions that come up frequently, including should you bring your passport with you in a cruise port of call or not? Now, before I get started, I did want to mention two things. Firstly, I am in Florida in between cruises. We are staying at a really nice condo along the Intercoastal in Deerfield Beach. I'll show you a little view that I am looking at right now. Finally, we're having a nice, sunny, and kind of warmish day. I am very happy with this. And secondly, if you like this video, if you find it helpful, informative, or enjoyable in any way, then please do give this video a big thumbs up. I really do appreciate it. And please subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Let's get started. Number one, don't wear your lanyard or your medallion around your neck when you get off in the cruise port of call. Now, I know this is going to seem pretty obvious, but it's just a really bad idea, especially as you go into the cruise port of call, maybe like the streets. Now, let's face it, it is obvious probably that we're not locals, but nothing screams cruise traveler that doesn't know anything, that's an easy target more than wearing your lanyard. So if you do have one, personally, I do have one, just tuck that away in your purse or handbag. Number two, leave your flashy jewelry on the cruise ship. Now, you do have a safe in all of the cabins, and honestly, these are safe and secure to use. So keep your valuables there, and that includes, personally, I think, even if you bring like a cubic zirconia ring on a cruise ship, I would still leave that on the cruise ship and not bring it into at least some of those more dangerous cruise ports of call. I will discuss those a little bit later on in the video. Number three, and I think this is one that we just don't often think about, but it could be handy if you really do need it. Make sure that you have your cruise ship contact number. Now, how do you get this? Sometimes the cruise ship contact number is actually going to be on the back of the key card. I love it when cruise lines do this, but otherwise you could find this on your daily planner. You could find this sometimes on the map that the cruise ship might give you for when you go into the cruise port of call. So it might be there. And even on the cruise ship, they often have these little screens as you're leaving the cruise ship or even on the different decks. So what you can do is simply take a photo of that or screenshot it if it's on your cruise line app, and make sure that you have that with you just in case. Number four, check the government or U.S. state advisories. You just want to know where are you going and what are the levels of alert right now. Now, that being said, the reality is that cruise ships are often going to be going to some cruise ports of call that do have a raised level of alert. And this is where we as cruise passengers do have to be cautious. Now, first of all, I do want to put your mind at ease a little bit, whether it's Nassau, Bahamas, whether it's Cozumel, Mexico, whether it's Roatan, Honduras, that do have travel advisories. And obviously you do the research for yourself. This is my opinion, but I don't think that the cruise line is going to bring passengers and crew somewhere that it is actively unsafe. And this is seen even when we do see cruise ships not stop at certain cruise ports of call for a certain period of time. And for instance, something that we found out is when we were visiting Roatan, Honduras, is even though Honduras has a raised level of alert, that this is not meant for Roatan. Even speaking with locals and looking up some of this information, we could see that while the mainland of Honduras is known as a dangerous destination, Roatan itself was not necessarily. Now, that being said, there are still things that we can do to be safe in cruise ports of call, but I will be getting to that. Have cash and a credit card for emergencies. Now, oftentimes people ask me, how much cash should I bring in a cruise port of call? Now, that depends. Have you booked an excursion? If you have, you probably need a lot less cash. So this is something to think about. But beyond that, are you going to need cash to eat off the cruise ship? Do you prefer to use a credit card? Personally, I like to use my credit card more and more because I do feel like it is a little bit safer, even in terms of any fraud, if that's going to happen. But this is completely up to you. But I always do bring a credit card just in case, because if I am in an emergency situation, I do want to know that I have that. Now, when it comes to cash, I usually make sure we have anywhere from $75 to about $100 in cash on us. This is good for when we're shopping at some of the little local souvenir shops, or even when we're paying the taxi. Oftentimes, I do prefer to pay in cash for that. Now, I would really like to hear from you on this and even any other points. So please let me know your thoughts and what you do down in the comments below. Speaking of excursions, do a cruise line excursion or book an excursion with a reputable third party. Now, this is in particular if you're getting off in a cruise port of call. As I mentioned, Roatan a little bit earlier, maybe Cozumel, Mexico, Nassau, Belize. There are some cruise ports of call, Falmouth, Jamaica, that you'll probably just have a better experience if you are booked with an excursion. Now, the reputable third party that we use is actually Shore Excursions Group. Now, this video is not sponsored by Shore Excursions Group, but I genuinely feel very comfortable booking with them. I absolutely love them, and they do have a back to ship guarantee, which I appreciate. Now, in case you're interested, I will leave the link to Shore Excursions Group down in the description below. And by the way, below my videos, you can always find in the description my Amazon Cruise Essentials that I recommend, as well as other resources. Follow the crowds. Now, this is going to seem like a funny one, but you will be safer if you follow where other tourists are also going. So it's not a good idea in many cruise ports of call to go too far off the beaten path. So you want to stay on those main roads. Oftentimes we found even in St. Thomas that along like the main roads, we feel very safe and very secure. But just going off a little bit, you can see that sometimes it's just a little bit of a different environment. And when you're new to the area, you're not going to know where are the good areas and maybe the not so good areas to go. Avoid dangerous excursions. Now, I know not everybody is going to agree with this one. This is my own personal rule. So I avoid, in particular in the Caribbean islands, I avoid ziplining excursions. I think it's a good idea to avoid scuba diving excursions. And in particular, what I mean is if you are not already an experienced scuba diver, and if your scuba diving excursion includes like a 20-minute lesson, you just might want to be cautious with that. Swimming with sharks is another one for me. Don't rent mopeds. Now, again, this is another personal rule, but I stand by this one 100%. Not only are you putting yourself at risk of injury, because it does happen to people, but you're even putting yourself at risk for certain scams that have to do with those mopeds. So it is a good idea. Rent mopeds in different places, but it probably is best not to do this in the Caribbean islands and even in Bermuda, by the way, because unfortunately, there are times that people have gotten into accidents, and the last place that you want to be when you're in a cruise port of call is in the hospital. Speaking of hospital stays, have travel insurance. You just never know when something happens. So make sure that you do have medical travel insurance for when you are in those cruise ports of call. Now, by the way, I'm often asked who is the best travel insurance company. The reality is I don't sell travel insurance, so I'm not the best person to advise you on that. But I can tell you that everybody's needs are different. So you could talk about this with your travel agent. That is probably the best place. But as well, if you've used a travel insurance that you recommend, please do leave it as a resource for people down in the comments below. I know that is going to be super helpful. Don't fall for common cruise port scams. And basically, anytime that anybody wants to pull you almost into their store, stay away from that. So whether they want you to try this eye cream, but just come on into the store, don't do it. Scam. The other one that is very common these days that I do want to warn you about is the I was your waiter scam, or basically I work on the cruise ship and this is my family's store or my family's restaurant. They are trying to get you to come into that place, but this is a scam. By the way, at the end of this video, I'll leave a video all about cruise port scams that is going to include more information. Only use licensed taxis. So if you are not booked on an excursion and if you're exploring on your own after you research, of course, when you're taking a taxi, only take the licensed taxis. Now you can find this in many Caribbean cruise ports of call. There will actually be stands and you'll see the price for all of, popular destinations. So some of the popular beaches, some of the popular tourist sites, and it will give you the exact amount that that taxi should be. That really is the only type of taxi that you should be taking in most cruise ports of call. Avoid theft by making sure that you are protected. Now, some of the ways that you could do this are just make sure that you don't have an open bag. So make sure that you have a backpack or a handbag or a straw bag, tote, that does have a zipper. Now, beyond that, for men, make sure if you have your wallet on you, then make sure that it is in your front pocket. Try to keep a hand on that. Now as well, when you're on a beach excursion or maybe you're out in the water and you want to make sure that your items stay safe, consider getting a waist pouch. I love this waterproof waist pouch. We've definitely used it when we've done water excursions where I can't have my eyes right on my stuff. Now something else you can use is a lockbox. And some people claim that you can put your valuable items like in a diaper and then leave them in your beach bag on a beach. Personally, I wouldn't do that. I feel like people might know that trick, but if you've ever used that trick before, please do let me know down in the comments below. All right, moving on to pickpockets. Now, in some European big cities, some cruise ports of call, Barcelona, Rome, pickpockets are a genuine problem. You want to avoid this. Now, what you can do is make sure either you have a money belt that is underneath your clothing. If you have a handbag, you can have a slash-proof handbag. But something that I found is just by having my handbag and I sort of pull it in front of me and I keep one hand right on the strap with the zipper, that has worked fine for me. I think the important thing is really just being very aware of your surroundings and being vigilant. Now you might be wondering, should you take your passport with you when you leave your cruise ship in a cruise port of call? Now there is no right or wrong answer to this, so I'm going to let you know what I do and what is advised by a lot of people. But basically, when you get off the cruise ship, there has been no time that we have not been advised to take our government ID. So what I do is I take my driver's license with me. Now these days I do not take my passport with me. Instead, I leave my passport, my entire family, we all leave our passports always locked in our safe. However, what I do is I do take a photo of my passport. I always have that on my phone, and as a matter of fact, I've even emailed those photos to myself. So if by chance I've lost my phone, I can still search my email and I can find those photos, and that is what I do in case I would have an emergency situation. Now, the way I see it is that is more likely that I could have my passport stolen than the fact that I would have an accident and that I would really need that, and that photocopy or that picture wouldn't suffice to get an emergency passport. But let me know your own experience as well down in the comments below. Be aware of ship time versus local time. Now, this is one thing that gets a lot of cruisers into trouble, and unfortunately, you could risk missing your cruise ship due to this simple, avoidable mistake. Now, when you're on your cruise ship, sometimes the local time is going to differ by an hour or even 2 hours. Most of the time, it's been an hour for us. And what you'll want to do is make sure that you have at least one watch or one phone that stays on your cruise ship time to keep an eye on this. Now, as well, something else you can do is plan to be back to the cruise ship minimum about an hour before your cruise ship leaves, and be just within that vicinity so that you never run into a problem. As I mentioned, I'm a bit of a cautious traveler, so something that I do is I actually take a photo of the all aboard sign as we're leaving the cruise ship, and it will usually say something like guests to be back on board for 5:30 p.m. as an example, crew to be back at 5 p.m. I take a photo, so if I start to second guess myself, I have that. Now I have 3 more, and the last one is very important and very relevant to right now. Be cautious with eating and drinking off the ship. Now, one thing to be cautious of in particular is actually drinking water off the cruise ship. Now, you can buy water bottles, and I think that is the best thing. However, I would even consider bringing the water bottles off the cruise ship. Now, you can definitely buy water bottles in a reputable store, and many restaurants are going to be just fine. Do a little bit of a research. Nowadays, you can look up reviews and you should be fine, but you really want to be careful to not buy water bottles off any street vendors, because unfortunately we've heard of cases where they actually fill the water bottles with local water and they just kind of reseal it. It obviously is something that they shouldn't do. It can get you very sick. So this is something you want to watch out for, both in the Caribbean, but even in some of the cruise ports in Europe. Use a travel agent. Now, if you are not sure how to navigate the different cruise ports of call, honestly, a good travel agent experienced in cruises is going to be able to help you. Now, the travel agent that I use is MEI Travel. This video is not sponsored by them. However, they are our travel partners. So if you are looking for a very good no-fee travel agency that will also help you with the price checking for your cruise, I absolutely love that. I'm going to leave the link for MEI Travel down below in the description as well. Don't go it on your own in cruise ports of call, or at least in most cruise ports of call. Now, what I mean is have a buddy system. So travel with somebody else, and even if you are traveling solo, there are options for you. You can either book an excursion either with the cruise line or with a reputable third-party independent tour provider. But the other thing you can do, even if you're exploring on your own, is ask somebody from the cruise ship if you could go with them. That actually happened to Frank and I. It was a few years ago, but we were actually taking an elevator down. It was in Cozumel. We met another lady in the elevator, and we had met her a couple of times on the cruise ship already, and she told us her husband had booked an excursion. It might have been snorkeling or something. She didn't want to go, but she didn't want to feel stuck on the cruise ship. So she asked us if we minded if she tagged along with us. Now, we did not mind at all. We were just going into downtown Cozumel, doing a little bit of shopping and that kind of thing, but it was great, and this way she wasn't alone. Now, something to be really cautious about is, ladies, don't go off with any men that you meet on the beach. That has unfortunately happened in some cruise ports of call, in particular Nassau, where people have reported assaults. So you want to be careful of that. But even for men, you don't want to meet up with people maybe that you met online before and meet them in the cruise ports of call. This is a recipe for danger. Now, I hope this video was helpful as you plan your cruise in your cruise port of call. Let me know your own additional tips and experiences down in the comments below, and I am going to leave that video right now so that you don't get scammed in a cruise port. If you did enjoy this video, please do give it a big thumbs up. I really do appreciate it, and please subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Bye for now, and happy cruising.